Welcome to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, once again, this week we're taking a look at the Bihar elections because that is really what is dominating the national narrative and also will be dominating the politics of the next few years. For instance, if the BJP wins, this will be the first time it will be able to have a chief minister in Bihar. I mean, if the BJP and the NDA gets to have a majority, will the BJP give in to that temptation of setting a record, which is what Modi and Amit Shah like to do, or will they keep their word to Nitish Kumar and make him the CM? And have they actually given him the word? Because we have spokespersons on TV channels saying that Nitish is the face, but so far neither Modi nor Amit Shah has outrightly said, unless I'm wrong, that Nitish Kumar is the face. On the other hand, the Mahagathbandhan, a lot is at stake for Tejasvi Yadav. Some people say this is his make and break election, though I think he's young, he has time on his side. But it is a crucial election for the Mahagathbandhan and, of course, the newcomer on the block, Prashant Kishor. What will be his role? He's put in a lot of money and a lot of effort on this campaign. Will that work on the ground? Those are the questions I'm going to be talking in the panel today. I have with me Amitabh Tiwari. He's a psephologist, founder of India Strategies, and we keep looking at his weekly poll survey, Vote Vibes, which has really been giving us on-ground reports of what is happening. Javed Ansari, he's a senior journalist, political analyst, and a columnist. And of course, Anshul Avijit, he's the national spokesperson for the Congress Party. Amitabh, first I'll come to you for the mood on the ground, really. Now we are entering the final phase. Prime Minister Modi is also in the campaign. Rahul Gandhi is also back on the campaign trail. What does it look like?
No, see, essentially, if you see from the day the election have been announced, what has happened is that now the contest moves to the candidates because now the candidates are formed up. The last date of withdrawal is gone. The Mahagathbandhan faced some issues with respect to candidate selection, distribution, and even friendly fights. But they have made some comeback because they have held a joint press conference, made a CM and a deputy CM announcement, and also announced their joint manifesto. So on these 3 points, they have gained back some momentum which they had lost because of infighting on the seat distribution. Now, what is happening is that the election is largely hyper local and events and news. Apart from these rallies which are being held, these bigger rallies, not likely to have much impact on the ground, what Rahul says or what Modi says, and this exchange, a heated exchange between them. So let's say I'm saying when I say news or incidents, let's say the yesterday's murder of a worker in Mokama, correct? Now, what does that do? That creates an entire pan state Bhumihar versus Yadav battle.
Okay.
Correct. So, I mean, it has its own pros and cons. I mean, it could consolidate the Yadav community in favor of Mahagathbandhan, but it also dilutes the efforts of Mahagathbandhan to get Bhumihar votes by fielding a lot of candidates, including the famous Munna Shukla's daughter. Correct. So these type of things are creating disturbances. Now, in the manifesto, there is one point on Batai Dhar, which is like giving rights to landless labor who plow the land of landlords. Now, that also is creating some amount of tensions or confusion amongst the landholders of Bihar. And the landholders of Bihar are not upper caste, not only upper caste, largely the Urmi Koiri Samaj, as well as from the Yadav Samaj, and even Muslims in areas where they are prosperous and hold a significant number of votes. So it's largely hyper local. RJD has done a tight ticket distribution by denying a lot of sitting MLAs tickets. BJP has not denied that number of tickets to MLAs, and that is causing some disturbance on the ground where the BJP needs to manage dissent. Now the election has moved to representation. You see the caste community also in one of the seats, the stronghold seats of NDA, where the caste community is angry because the community has not got the ticket. So everywhere across Bihar, people are talking about representation of their community, selecting their and sending most number of MLAs to the assembly, because then only the issues of the caste community will be protected.
Okay. Javed, a bit, where do you see the election headed? Also, now I think every party, for instance, the ND, of course, has focused largely on the women voter. Everybody is looking to also extend their vote banks. Tejasvi Yadav has also introduced schemes for women, Har Ghar Sarkari Naukri. So he's also looking for the youth and women. Prashant Kishor is the factor that is appealing to the Muslims and the youth, but not so many women candidates. So everybody's kind of positioning themselves. How do you see that happening?
See, there's a couple of points that come to mind.
Hmm.
One, that a couple of questions that need to be answered. One, is there a depletion, a drift away from Nitish Kumar as far as the women voters are concerned and the Koiri Kurmi? And if so, to what extent? What is how successful or unsuccessful is Mr. Tejasvi Yadav in broadening his tent, which is, doing a PDA, uh, moving out of the, you know, MY formula and getting other cars. How successful are the the ECBs and Mahadalits, are they coming?
Hmm.
And what is the impact of Mr. Prashant Kishor? Is it mere optics, or is this also going to translate into votes? I think, these are some of the questions which that will answers to which will determine, to my mind, the course of this election.
Fair enough. Anshul, you're also the only politician on the panel, so a little bit more political analysis than just Congress positioning over here. And you are someone who's there on the ground. Do you see the election in terms of narrative? What are the issues that are taking hold? And a bit about what the question that Javed has also raised.
Priya, see, there are two parallel things going on in this election as far as campaigning is concerned. I completely agree with Amitabh. The
Hmm.
first is what the media essentially wants to talk about is the national leadership coming in and giving these big rallies, and then there are star campaigners, they give them press conferences that come out in the newspapers, it enters people's consciousness. But the real story is not that, according to me. The primacy has to be given to their individual candidates and their campaigning. Actually, elections are won and lost on booths. So
Hmm.
no matter how impactful a rally may be, or somebody says something or not says something, if it's not encashed in the booths, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
So the focus of the Congress party, or any party, NDA for that matter, should be, and it is, we have a war room ready, there are observers, there are other people ready, but it's left to individual candidates ultimately. What are they doing on their booths? Are their polling agents ready? Are the tables outside the booths ready? I've gone through a million elections. Actually,
Hmm.
it's the last final 2 days, and particularly in Bihar, that make all the difference. What about the tables? Who are your polling agents? Are the bastas being prepared? The bastas are the packets that go to the various polling agents by the candidate, which contain your voters lists. When you go to the booth, and somebody who's voted would know that when you go, a parchi is handed over to you by somebody sitting on a table which is outside the booths a little distance away, and they're usually people of various parties, and they give parchas. Is those bastas ready? Are they gone to the candidate? Are they being prepared? What about the deployment of resources? Do they have enough money for the last 2 days, or everything is being spent in the first 1 week? I remember a candidate last time, he spent all his resources in the first week and didn't have much for the last couple of days when it's so critical. So what
Correct.
about their door-to-door campaigning? What about their Nukkad Sabhas? All this, the focus now, as Amitabh completely rightly pointed out, is on
Yes.
the candidate and their campaign, the role of rumors, the role of caste consolidation, who's against what. All these micro factors are being deployed. Of course, rallies will go on. There was this thing, oh, Rahul ji is not coming, Khadge Saab is not there, this one is not there. This will all go on. This is a parallel movement that goes on. But these are
Hmm.
two separate things. I lay a lot of emphasis to the only emphasis has to be the campaign, because that is will ensure your victory or loss or whatever it may be. So that's one thing. So the
Hmm.
narrative becomes therefore very, very local. So these kind of meta narratives, when I've heard the speeches of both the Prime Minister and Amit Shah, they're trying to nationalize the election. The Prime Minister again talked about Sindoor and many other things. And meta projects which go on in Bihar, हमने इतनी road बनाई. I don't think that makes any difference. कि highways bane ki nahi bane. I mean, it hasn't reached your spot. A highway makes no difference to an MLA election, a national
Hmm.
highway. I know that. It's about local politics, Chapakal pumps and Samudaya Bhavan and many things. So,
Okay.
a granular, particularistic election is now what it's come down to. That's what the party should actually focus on.
Okay, Amitabh, I remember when we started doing these discussions with you, you said a lot will depend on the candidate selection, and you were also told us that what Anshul is also repeated now, that it's really the local, each district booth now is going to come down to that, the crunching figures. In terms of candidate selections, you have some data on how many candidates have been repeated, the kind of candidates that have been fielded, if you could share with us.
Yeah, so it's the Bihar elections is like a Bihar Premier League, correct? You have two
Yeah.
teams. You have Nitish as the captain or JDU still as the captain and BJP as the vice captain despite having equal number of seats. You have RJD as the captain and Congress as the vice captain in the Mahagathbandhan, and then you have smaller players.
Right.
Now, RJD has replaced almost 46% of its sitting MLAs. Because as per our earlier trackers, 53% people were saying that they are not going to vote for their incumbent MLA if they contest again across parties. JDU and Congress have replaced 26% of their MLAs. However, BJP has replaced just 20% of their MLAs, which is a lower number when you compare to other states and even national elections. I recollect in 2019, they had replaced 45% of their MPs, if I'm not wrong. So ticket distribution is like this. So this BPL, this Bihar Premier League, what has happened is that the smaller players were not wrong when they criticized that JDU and BJP have taken the Malai tickets, because RLM 6 seats is battling against RJD all six. Hum has 6 seats, 5 seats against RJD. LJP has 28 seats, 19 seats against RJD. So the smaller players are fighting the strongest
Tougher
players
seats.
from Mahagathbandhan. Despite Congress making a lot of noise around quality seats, what has happened is that Congress is pitted against JDU and BJP on 50 of the 60 seats it is contesting. And if I count the friendly fights, because on many seats there are RJD and Congress and CPI Congress also versus BJP or JDU, that number goes up to 55. So on 55 seats, actually the Congress party is fighting against JDU and BJP. And this 55 seats will decide the Dasha and Disha of the election. The Congress had the lowest strike rate in 2020 in Mahagathbandhan. The JDU had the lowest strike rate in NDA. JDU lost to every party like RJD, CPIML whenever there was a face-to-face contest. But on the contest versus Congress, JDU had emerged victorious. So these 55 seats are going to decide what is going to happen in Bihar. Now, Javed ji pointed out just 3 questions, and I'll just quickly do that. The women drift is not happening in the core block. I would say there is still some support for Nitish Kumar or that 10,000 rupee scheme, even among the core vote base of Mahagathbandhan, which is Muslims and Yadav females. Surprisingly, Muslim women are more prone to vote for NDA or Nitish Kumar compared to Yadav women on this particular aspect, which is the 10,000 scheme. The PK factor, he has fielded 92 upper caste and Bania candidates, which is likely to damage NDA, and only 52 Muslim and Yadav candidates, which is likely to damage the Mahagathbandhan. And the efforts of expanding the MY, the Sahani's party VIP and IIP plus Congress is garnering a section of EBC and upper caste Dalit votes to the Mahagathbandhan. So these allies are actually attempting to broaden the bouquet. How much they actually succeed, I mean, that's difficult to say at this point of time.
Thank you. That was really interesting data. I'm going to take a quick break and come back and speak to Javed and Anshul on this data, but after a very quick break. Hello and welcome back to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. We are here taking a look at the Bihar elections. And Javed, your first reaction to the data of the fact that BJP has repeated more candidates in Bihar than in any other state. Does it mean because it doesn't have that many local leaders, or why would they do something like that? Because this is not par for the course for the BJP.
Well, it's an eye opener, and I'm surprised that nowhere does this figure in the discourse in the national media. Whether by intent or by accident, I don't know. I'm purposely not saying what is in my mind,
You're
but
being kind. I was just going
yeah,
to say
yeah.
that. Yes.
But this is very strangely. There's a huge infighting in Congress. Nitish Kumar's cognitive abilities are on a you know, massive decline. Everything else is getting covered. What Nitish Kumar eats, what Saini wears, what Rahul Gandhi does or does not do, everything is being covered. But the moot point with Amitabh ji is brought out. None of our worthies have dared to even venture in that direction, leave alone provide an insight. So it's a very insightful analysis. To my view, this is going to have a very important bearing on the outcome of this election. The other remarkable feat, up till I don't have to eat my words later on, and I'm not speaking too early, is that the absence of any kind of polarization on religious lines, which has been a template which some people have patented. So far, Bihar elections are relatively free of this kind of madness.
There was
I don't
some
know.
talk of Ghuspetia, but I don't know whether that they
Yeah, yeah,
tried to divide SIR on those lines.
yeah, but Ghuspetia, so far it's not.
Got on. Okay, a good
It's
point.
not. It's not drawing any traction. So let's hope it stays that way. And so much will depend now on how the campaigning, all these tantrums and filibustering and positioning, all that, the time for all this is over now. Everybody has to hit the campaign trail, and the last mile connectivity, the last mile delivery. If you can get your voters out, then whoever manages to and does a
Hmm.
better job of getting their voters out will probably, because just let's remember last time the margin between victory for government formation and opposition was just 15 seats.
Right.
Even 7 seats here and there can tilt the balance. So it's a far more evenly contested election than what it appears if you start watching the late evening news bulletins or you start reading some of the English language newspapers. If you ever make a trip,
Yeah. Hmm.
Amitabh made a very valid point. I was there a month and a half ago to attend a wedding, and it was a largely minority affair. And a lot of people say they didn't have a bad word for Nitish Kumar. They said, look, he's been in power for 20 years. Apart from the fact that 20 years anti-incumbency, hand pump nahi lagaiye,
Hmm.
all that thing. But they said, look, he's kept the BJP in check. He hasn't allowed them to run rampage. So what? I mean, the worst you can accuse him is of political opportunism. So these small factors which we tend to overlook. Everything will have its say, and
Good points. Hmm.
it's a battle of small margins as far as I'm concerned.
Smoke and mirrors. But Anshul, if you don't know, not just the Congress, but the role of Prashant Kishor is something how do you see the role of Prashant Kishor? Who is he, whose votes is he eating into more? He has said on, I don't know how, but on at least a couple of interviews, I've heard him saying that if I don't get 125 seats, then, I'll consider myself a failure. Is that too ambitious a plan?
Yeah, so his role is not, since he's a X factor as he's being called, his role is not clear. Last night I was trying to speak to someone who's very close to him, trying to understand what was happening. It was pretty unclear at the moment how he's going to emerge. A couple of things are very clear to me. That the
Hmm.
emergence of Prashant Kishore is leveraged on a huge amount of wealth, right? Which is unheard of. And by his own disclosure, the amount of money that he has spent to get himself in politics is completely unheard of in the politics of Bihar. It may be in other states, but not here. and you can see that when you go from village to village there, because there is a Prashant Kishor poster. There are hoardings, there are huge hoardings in the middle of Patna as well. I mean, all this costs money. I mean, these
Right.
autos that keep going around blaring their jingles, that happens everywhere, almost every small town, it's all there. So, on the back of huge money, this has happened. This has naturally entered the mind space. This is a part, it achieves centrality in the narrative that he's there, which is an achievement in itself. Now, I'm not quite sure about the number of seats which people are talking about, but I think that if he captures some percentage of the votes, that will be really interesting to see how
Hmm.
that affects outcome. So honestly do not know. I've spoken to everyone. People have different views in different constituencies. For example, in Karagar, where he's from, actually in Sasaram, he's fielded a Bhojpuri movie star of a particular community. I think he's I can't remember, but
Ambin,
he might affect the votes. Yeah, sorry, what is he, Amitabh?
Ambin, Ritesh Pandey.
Ritesh Pandey, of course, yeah, yeah. Ritesh Pandey is there. So he's going to affect that kind of votes. Yeah, yeah, I've forgotten about that. So Karagar is where he's from. So he individual candidates in different places may affect candidates, and that's how it's going to pan out. But it'll be really interesting to see how it's going to work. I mean, he has somewhat emerged as some sort of disruptor in this election, at least
Hmm.
narrative wise. And let's see what happens.
Okay. Prashant Kishor factor, Amita, what is your, do you see him getting the 125 seats, or this is just something he says because, he can always walk away from it later and disown it?
25 seats, I mean, it is difficult to get because
Hmm. First election.
and he's still, I mean, himself not confident because he's saying both that I will be Arshpe or I will be Farshpe. So he is giving a range of 0 to 125. Correct. I mean, we as pollsters, if we give this range, people will start trolling us and and people will not be calling us on shows. Correct. So 0 to
Hmm.
125 is largely the range he has given. So I gave you the caste breakup. It is 92 upper caste and Bania, which is the core vote block of NDA, and 52 Muslim Yadav candidates core vote block of Mahagathbandhan. His role becomes interesting, important in 83 seats where the margin last time was less than 5%. If he gets 5%, then he will spoil the prospects of some one or the either party in these 83 seats, just like LJP did. LJP, we
Hmm.
talk a lot about NDA, but it also damaged Mahagathbandhan in 32 seats and NDA in 40. Correct. So net the impact was only 8. If you see the social profile of the voters, he is getting 18 to 24 age group vote. So it's likely to damage Mahagathbandhan. He is getting upper caste, likely to damage NDA. He is getting more male because amongst females, this
Hmm.
issue of he will lift the prohibition policy is working against him. And when
Hmm.
you economic class, it's largely the middle and the upper class, corruption, etc., are impacting these section of voters, and also some poor who are excited by his health and education policy, etc., etc. So I think is largely playing the role of spoiler. In, I would say, around 10 to 15 seats, he has good candidates also who are getting decent, or maybe 15 to 20 good candidates also who are getting decent traction on the ground as well.
Javed, quickly, in terms of Tejasvi Yadav, how do you see him as Lalu's heir, in terms of these elections, in terms of his rhetoric?
Look, he's trying very hard to branch out, to try and carve a separate niche for himself, and to try and to try and do an Akhilesh Yadav, in the sense that Akhilesh also tried to veer the Samajwadi Party away from what it was under his father. So the same, Tejasvi is trying the same thing. It's not very easy. There are historical baggages that he carries, and it's not very easy. But he's doing his bit. He's, like Amitabhji pointed out, they've changed the maximum number of sitting MLAs. It's not an easy task, and he has to expand the tent. He has to add to the big bouquet. Perhaps it will take it. It may happen this time, or perhaps it may take another election. But what Tejasvi has to do is that in between elections, he also, like a lot of these youngsters, they take it easy for 3.5 years or 4 years. Then in the last mile, at the last moment, then they get up. then they start helicoptering and all that. You have to be at it. If there is one thing that he needs to pick out of his father's playbook, is the fact that he was a 24/7 politician,
Sure.
Lalu Yadav, which Tejasvi also needs to become, which Akhilesh Yadav has now become. In his latest avatar, Akhilesh has become. This is what he needs to, and he needs to expand the tent. Need to get out from the. Let me put on record. I need to state this. I don't know how many the number of seats Mr. Prashant Kishor will get, but at least he's the only one who's offering something different, who's offering a roadmap, a vision. Everybody else, the same cast, ye kar denge, wo kar denge, ye bridge bana denge. Everybody promises the moon. Politicians will promise to build you a bridge where there is not even a nala. So people are so
Correct.
used to it. At least he's offering something different.
Yeah.
He claims to have an answer to the Palayan issue, the immigration issue, which affects almost every second household in Bihar.
Yeah.
So these are issues which need to be, and Tejasvi needs to focus on the bread and butter issues, not just identity.
Okay. Quickly, Anshul, your last word on, where do you think this election is headed, or on Tejasvi, if you want to comment on that.
No, so the election, if I can be quite dispassionate, I always try and be on your show, Priya.
You do.
No election is easy. It's a challenging election. It now depends on many factors on the ground. You have to, as Javed said, it's the last mile connectivity. It's on the booth, your polling agents. You have to encash those votes. No matter how many votes you've got or how many they've got, you cannot encash them in the last moment. It doesn't matter. No election is an easy one, particularly in Bihar, particularly for the Mahagathbandhan. There is absolutely no room for complacency. I mean, I keep speaking to candidates who I know I mean, I find out how things are going. I said absolutely no room. Use your resources judiciously. This is all what matters here. At the moment, one doesn't really know. I'm hoping that there is a clear margin for the Mahagathbandhan, but that really amounts to nothing. I don't know what will happen on the ground. But yeah, no room for complacency. It's a tough election. The message has been served. Now it's time to encash whatever votes you've got. That is the real thing. Tejaswi, I think, has been working tremendously hard. Last time in 2024, in my own election, every time I had called him, he had come for the team, despite being physically not able to do it. In 2020, he was attending rally after rally and running from the stage to the copter and then going from one rally after another. So his presence is a very critical one, right? And he's probably going to take a tour like he's doing right now. He remains a central figure in this election and critical to the fortunes of the Mahagathbandhan.
Okay. On that note, thank you so much for your insights on the ground and the analysis, and Anshul, especially for being so candid. Thank you for this conversation. And well, we are watching the high stakes Bihar elections first poll on 6th. Thank you so much.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.